Indian patrol, after the Indian patrol was ambushed, they in fact retaliated and killing at least 40 Chinese soldiers, as reports had to say. So now coming to this part, that what we could now analyze, that we have come to a point in the paper that China's India policy, and we could explain the theoretical dynamics behind Chinese aggression, which needs to be decoded by India. Now coming to the actually the concluding part, it's a little elongated. So what are the policy options for India in countering the threat from the dragon, or will the elephant continue to dance to the tunes of the dragon? The COVID situation or a post-COVID situation or a pre-COVID situation, the conflict dynamics remain same. In fact, this has increased all the more. So India must need to decode that. So what will be the policy options? First, Modi, the present government under Prime Minister Narendra Singh Modi, should not repeat the mistakes of its predecessors in making an estimate of the Chinese threat and Chinese aggressionist designs, and should not fall in line to be trapped by a policy of appeasement or congagement, that is containing while engaging, or a China submissive policy. China's inherent aggressive mindset of the Chinese need to be decoded, deciphered. Nehru had failed miserably in both self-sufficiency and military toughness with China. Modi should not repeat those mistakes. In international relations, we can refer to some doctrines like tit-for-tat tactics, eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation, brinkmanship or rocking the boat tactics, which could be employed by India in the face of Chinese salami slicing and preemptive, unprovoked attack tactics, especially stepping up military vigilance, and intelligence should be stepped up in border management areas. Secondly, what India can do. Hello?
Sir, I would like to interfere in between a little bit. Sir, for some reason, we have been struck down by YouTube because maybe we were saying something which was a little bit controversial or something. We have been struck down by YouTube. We are restreaming on another link. So I will just send the links to in the group first, and if you can continue, then a little bit wait for me.
Okay.
So we have sent the link, and I hope we are good to go now. Okay.
Am I audible again?
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. So, as a second option which I can suggest, that India can showcase its democratic credentials in forging alliances with the USA and the major powers, and pave the way for a strong coalition building up front to counter the potential and actual Chinese aggression, the quadrilateral,
So we cannot
India,
see you.
Australia, New Zealand. Oh yeah. Hello?
Yes, sir. We cannot see you. We can
Is
hear
it
you.
fine now? You can't see?
No,
The
sir.
camera is on. Yeah, but kept the
Okay,
camera
okay,
on.
okay. We are good. We are good.
Okay. The quadrilateral, the G7, etc., can be forums in which India needs to engage all the more. US-India, India-Russia ties can be strengthened, and power asymmetry with China needs to be reduced. Third, we must not forget, if China is the land of Sun Tzu, then India is also the land of Kautilya, and Kautilya was very much able to provide a strategic doctrine, although he dealt at the level of strategy of deception. Kautilya has a parallel doctrine to it, it is known as Kuto Juddho, using negative tactics in warfare. Also that of Doidi Bhava, which means having one thing in mind, speaking the other. But Indians who are hailing from the land of Kautilya, they strictly refrain from such doctrines, but such tactics. But if you go by the tit-for-tat tactics that we need to employ in IR sometimes, what China is doing against us, we should also at least attempt, or at least at least threaten China to attempt such deceptive measures against China, right? So if we still have some of the chromosomes of Kautilya intact, India should not be easily flummoxed by China's choreographed, designed, deceptive engagement overtures, right? What happened in Wuhan, Mallapuram, there is a Chennai Connect, and Wuhan in 2018, that India, China as if was connecting, and later Xi Jinping remarked that no, it's only on request of Modi that we were able to sit together. So is it a fact that China wants to engage India that much? But it is India who is pursuing the appeasement policy. That sort of an appeasement may ultimately prove very deceptive, right? So what China is doing to us, we could also create at least attempt to create such sort of a combat force which can inch into Chinese territory, then force the Chinese to sit in the table. I mean, we should meet aggression with aggression, right? If we are going to emerge in the ranks of a major power, which Harshdeep pointed out in 2003, that a rising power needs that level of a strategic culture as a part and parcel of its foreign policy. That is in fact, the theoretical within which we can locate the inherent weaknesses of India's China policy too, which I was emphasizing all the more. The Galwan Valley incident should be an eye-opener for India and should compel her to undertake a major course correction in our strategic stance towards China. We should radically upgrade our border infrastructure around the LAC on a war footing. Defense preparedness and preemptive force posture was mentioned already, must be boosted up. Rapid combat forces must be ready to deal with intrusions, unprovoked intrusions in the border areas. India, next. India should shed her reticence or reluctance in diplomatically isolating China and strengthen forums. In fact, policymakers were doing that. Look, since we have joined the Quad, we have been engaging with the US, who has invited us to join the G7. That is why China got angry on us and they instituted that thing. But that is not at all. The theoretical thing is that this is nothing but a continuous process of Chinese intrusion, unprovoked intrusion, and nibbling into Indian territory. This is part of a large planned Chinese aggressionist design, not an ad hoc response type. But what India had to do is what on wrong foot, then had to provide an ad hoc response. So this ad hocism, responsiveness in Indian foreign policy, these shackles need to be thrown out, right? And then only a positive, qualitative change in Indian foreign policy can be brought, right? We can use strengthened forums like Quad. We can support the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, expand interactions with Taiwan, and we should obviously condemn Chinese bullying in the South China Sea, the Spratly, Paracel Island disputes where China is meddling into the South China Sea. We should also, like US, hand in hand with US, or unilaterally we can also intervene, or multilaterally, right? India should reduce in a calibrated manner, the very important part, its dependence on Chinese imports. In fact, we have already started the process of reducing infrastructure support from getting infrastructure support from China, reducing dependence on Chinese apps, right? And systematically ban Chinese investments in infrastructure projects and shoring up indigenous production, and being what Modi always has harping on, being Atmanirbhar, self-sufficient to the best possible extent. The recent banning of Chinese apps to prevent data mining by China, to the stopping of a few Chinese infrastructure investments, have been a smart move, right? A good retaliation. Foreign investments in infrastructure sectors harnessed from other countries who are the drivers of the global economy. Alternative trade and investment avenues must be explored. The WTO can be a forum which India can use in mounting pressure on China, right? Because China is totally flouting the anti-dumping norms by dumping cheap Chinese made goods into India. So India could step up the gas therein. India should in fact also use forums like the World Health Organization to keep pressure on China regarding accountability in the spread of COVID-19. Now coming to the last part, I will like to use three theoretical framework. I should try to look before ending my lecture. I think I have 5 minutes also. I think that I would like to look into India-China crisis through lenses in international relations. Myself being a student of international relations, a researcher, also a teacher of that, I would try to put forward three theories, how they can look into the China-India crisis. Realism has a statist viewpoint. Realism posits that states are still the main actors in international politics. The situation arising from COVID-19 just reaffirms the point. Citizens of every state, in fact, statism is at an all-time high because citizens of every state are seeking protection against the crisis, not from the non-state actors, but from their own respective national governments. States have been the drivers, the engines of the global fight against COVID. The primacy of the states, state sovereignty, state borders, border control seem to loom large. although military security dilemma, as championed by realism, has somewhat taken a back seat, and health and demographic security concerns are virtually tormenting statesmen and policymakers alike. The basic parameters of China-India military conflict, border conflict coupled with other political issues have been left unaltered. Yet the statist military paradigms which realism has to say has been left unaltered. In fact, the traditional geopolitical fault lines between India and China, the border conflict, the military confrontation, this is left unaltered, and this highly champions the realist position, right? But if we look into an alternative paradigm of constructivism, what does constructivism have to say? Constructivism, it feels that nothing is fixed in IR. Yeah, conflict between states are there, but for which we cannot refer back to a level of anarchy or lack of any regulating authority in the system. It is the international order is constituted by the states, and everything which happens in the international order is nothing but unconscious actions of the states. But behind such conscious materialistic designs and steps taken by the state remains a non-material structure of ideas. First, it is nothing but ideas precede matter. In fact, the ideas, the designing of everything goes, in fact, in minds of statesmen before they're put into a materialistic shape. If you look at, say, the SARC, the design was made in the vision of the South Asian statesmen, or the NATO, the West European state, USA, and this West European allies during the Cold War. They initially thought about a structure like NATO, a European security alliance. Then they put it into a materialistic shape. So this is what the constructivist theory showcases. So if we look at constructivism, how can it provide an explanation that it looks into the crisis as something it should? If they try to attempt to look into the crisis, they would say that this idea of this COVID-19, it first originated in the Chinese mindset. Then they got shape. These pathogens were put in shape in the Wuhan medical laboratories, and then it took the material reality of the global pandemic, which stimulated frantic efforts of states to fight and contain this health emergency, and is still continuing. So the design of the Galwan action plan, if the constructivists have to look at it, it was well planned ahead by the Chinese military top brass. It reflects the Chinese, in fact, it was mandated by the Communist Party of China also. And in fact, it reflects the Chinese aggressive mindset, and it was put into material shape by the military, that is the PLA. China had to hit back hard at international criticisms that were doing rounds. It was being branded globally as a virus dissemination center. To showcase its aggression and military might and the power status, the Dragon conducted this operation against an emerging power in Asia, that is India, to showcase that China is not in a submissive mode. Now I come to the third paradigm in IR before I conclude. The pluralist or the complex interdependence is known as the cobweb model. Realism is known as the billiard ball model, which states in constant collision with one another. But the pluralists design a cobweb model where the states are interlinked in a web of economic interaction. Political conflicts are there, but they're enmeshed in a web of economic relationship. Okay, and they may propose that economic interdependence between India and China may ultimately lead to a diffusion of military crisis between them, while the politico-military complexities might remain unaltered. But this has not been the case, since these politico-military complexities are now ruling the roost. But the thing is, all these three paradigms, they may be a little shortcoming in the research agenda, that they may not be possible, any one paradigm, to provide possible explanations of how the post-COVID global order. If one looks at the pluralist paradigm in the post-COVID order, interdependence among the states have to be there. This theoretically should be there, because otherwise we will not be able to live in that post-COVID world, tackling the challenges which we are now facing. If we continue this military infightings, this geopolitical fault lines continue to exist, then one day this might lead to our